Get ready. Helena Hustle is now live. Here, we will showcase successful leaders in business, athletics, healthcare, and all things that make Helena a great place to live. Join Dr. Daniel Bridge, owner of Endurance Chiropractic, as he searches out amazing individuals who are making a tremendous difference in this place we call home. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired with the Helena Hustle podcast.
Welcome, Bob.
Well, thank you for inviting me to have an interview and come and talk to you.
Yeah. This is Helena Hustle, and I'm here with Cowboy Bob, who, among other things, is a musician here in Helena, and I think the Helena community is really lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
So, Bob, let's start with the two truths and a lie that you've got for me. See if you can stump me.
Two truths and a lie.
Yeah, so just mix up the order, and I got to pick out your lie.
Let's see. I grew up in Kansas. I have spent winters in Arizona, and I've traveled to Maine.
Those are tough ones. I'm gonna say that you did not grow up in Kansas. Is that the lie?
No,
that's the truth. Which one's the lie?
I have not traveled to Maine. It's the only state in the lower 48 that I haven't traveled to.
Really? The only one? When are you getting that checked off the list?
Well, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it.
I'd love to go to Maine.
I'd love to go there too, but it's not super high on my list of fun things to do.
What is super high on your list?
You know what? I'd really like to go visit Santa Fe again sometime.
Okay.
The old Santa Fe, you know.
What'd you do there?
It's kind of a magical place, and I'm talking about the old downtown area. Mm-hmm. It's the oldest city, European city in the United States. It's not the oldest continuously inhabited city in the United States because shortly, about 10 years after it was first settled by the Spanish, the Indians went on the rampage and ran them out, and they went down to El Paso and lived there for about 10 years and then came back. And during that period of time, then our eastern seaboard, I forget which town was the first one, but European settlement began on the East Coast, our East Coast, during that period of time. So, but anyway, it's the old adobe buildings that were still built, that were built in that period of time, and they're still there in the old downtown Santa Fe area. And so it's just very artistic, peaceful kind of a place.
Yeah, my brother Brandon got his PhD from University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. And I was visiting him, and one Saturday we went, and it is really beautiful.
Yeah.
So are you a history buff, Bob?
Well, of sorts. I'm not super history, but
with certain things that you're interested in.
I've kind of studied the history of the American West a little bit. I mean, just kind of interested me in. I went to a one-room country grade school, so
you did.
Yeah.
Wow. And, K through 8, or high school included.
First through 8th grade.
What did your folks do?
They had a ranch and a farm in western Kansas.
Okay.
And we had a little one-room. I went to a little one-room country grade school with all 8 grades in one room.
No kidding.
23 people was the most people I ever remember in the school. Most of the time it was 18 to 20 kids.
Okay. Wow.
And so since the school board decided that since they didn't have a lot of money for teachers, that they would put money into the library.
Oh.
So the little school had an extraordinary little library.
Really?
And I love to read, and so I would go read stories about anything that was interesting to me, which was, of course, horses and horses and
Did you
cowboys.
Did you have horses?
Yeah. I got a quarter horse for my birthday when I was 6.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
What a special birthday present.
Well, I tell you what, when I realized that I had been born a wild cowboy on the prairies of Kansas, I couldn't think of anything better that could have happened.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you guys, go ahead.
My dad, when my dad gave me that horse, he said, "Okay." He said, "Now when you can catch him and put the bridle on him and get on by yourself and ride around at a gallop." He said, "I don't mean just gallop straight." He said, "I mean gallop turning and everything." He said, "When you can do that," he said, "I'll get you a saddle."
Really? You were 6, huh?
Yeah.
So your dad was pretty overprotective then, huh?
Yeah, totally.
Just like parents today.
Go for it. Go for it, kid. I got a saddle for my birthday when I was 7.
Oh, you learned in that time.
Oh, yeah.
You could sneak up on your horse,
bridle
it.
Yeah, by the age of 7, I could catch my horse and bridle it.
Ride it bareback.
And get on. I mean, without a saddle, you gotta figure out a way to get on. At that age, mostly, which was I led him up beside the fence and climbed up on a fence and then jumped over onto him.
Really? Your dad probably thought he had a little more time to save up for a saddle.
He
right?
did, yeah. It surprised him.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really cool. You know what? I knew we were going to have a good conversation, Bob. I'm already feeling this is going to be better than I expected.
Well, I hope so.
So you guys had cattle then?
Yeah.
And what kind of crops did you raise?
Wheat primarily was our cash crop, but we raised cane and milo to feed to the cattle.
Sugar cane?
It's a relative of sugar cane.
Okay.
It's sorghum. It's called sorghum, and it's it's a feed. It's a type of feed, that they feed to cattle. They chop it up and pack it down in trenches in the ground, and it sort of pickles, and the top part of it rots and seals it over and preserves it. And then
cows love it.
Cows love it.
They do that here too, right?
Yeah, they do some, not as much.
We
but
were at
some.
a Hutterite colony, and I'm pretty sure that's what they were. We were getting a little tour, and they were showing us big pile of hay, and I'm pretty sure they did that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Very nutritious for the cattle too.
Very nutritious, yeah, and sweet, and the cattle really like the taste of it. And then we mixed some grain with that called milo, which is a milo plant looks just like a corn plant, except where the tassel on the corn is where the grain berries of the milo are. And at the end of each of the little fronds that sticks out, is a little red berry about the size of a BB. That's real hard and very nutritious. Again, good cattle feed. And so that was the primary crop, cattle and wheat. And then we raised those 2 feeds to feed the cattle with. And we had
What percentage of the crop fed the cattle? All of it? Or did you sell some as well?
The cane and the milo, we fed all that to the cattle. We didn't
cattle.
sell that, or very little. Once in a while, maybe we'd sell a load or 2 of milo. Go to town and take it to the grain elevator and sell it, But primarily that was cattle feed.
Okay.
And then we raised hogs and chickens, and we had a big garden and about an acre.
Oh, wow. An acre garden?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did your mom can?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And my grandmother lived on the ranch. She owned the ranch. My grandfather died when my dad was about 12.
This is your dad's parents?
Yeah, my dad's parents. And his dad died when he was about 12, so I never knew that grandparent. But my folks' house was about 50 yards from my grandmother's house.
Okay.
And so I was raised in a great deal by my grandmother.
Okay.
And
did you have siblings?
I have a sister that's a year younger, a brother that's 5 years younger, and a brother that's 7 years younger.
Oh, so you're the oldest.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing there was a lot expected of you.
Yeah, there was.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up being kind of taking care of the kids, and
Mm-hmm. You learned responsibility at a young age, learned how to work hard at a young age.
we did, and we never. And of course, on a family ranch and farm, you don't. Everybody works.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't ever occur to us that there was any other thing to do.
Right. You didn't know.
And my folks were really good about letting us play too. They'd let us go play as kids. It wasn't like we had to work constantly or all the time or anything like that. They were good about giving us, very good about giving us playtime and and the good thing about that was, both of my parents were very good about it. If I told them where I was going to be and came back when I said I would, I could go anywhere I wanted.
Oh, nice.
So I had just basically unlimited range of places where I could go on the ranch,
Yeah. Little side rant. There's this book called The Comfort Crisis. And
it's called the what?
The Comfort Crisis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So in today's day and age, this author talks about how we've never been more comfortable with, climate controlled rooms and an abundance of food and cheap and easy entertainment. Yet stress, anxiety, depression have never been higher. And, the idea that the safer we get, the more our brains need to find something to be worried about. When we don't have any real danger in our lives, a flight that's 15 minutes late seems like a crisis. And all these little things can start to really stress us out. And, part of me wants to really fight that system. And I want to, at least to a certain extent for myself and for my own family. But just introducing the real world and hard things and maybe even dangerous things to a degree are actually going to be a lot more healthy for us mentally in the long run. You can't just stay in a white padded room your whole life.
No, that's very true. Yeah. Sometimes you need some adventure,
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes a lot. I think back on that time, and of course, and I was not an exception either, Other kids were like the same way. I mean, it wasn't. I wasn't the only. I wasn't the only kid that was working or driving a tractor at that young age. I started driving a tractor when I was 6 years old. My first job was to drive the tractor while my dad ate lunch during.
Give him a little break.
Yeah, to keep the tractor going because it didn't go very fast,
Okay, yeah.
And we had a lot of work to do, so my mom would bring lunch out to my dad in the field, and then I'd get on the tractor, and he'd show me how to drive it, and he'd ride around with me until he was satisfied that I could steer it, and pull the clutch and stop it if I had to,
Yeah.
and turn me loose, and then of course, it was going really slow. It'd only go about 2 or 3 miles an hour, but.
Yeah.
So he'd jump off and walk over to the car while it was running, and then I'd stop it whenever he got done eating lunch.
Cool. That's interesting.
But that wasn't unusual. And so we grew up kind of doing work and activities that probably would horrify most people at this point.
Right. Yeah.
But we thought it was normal, and other kids were doing the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, it was just life. Did you work on the ranch after high school or when you were in your late teens, early 20s?
No, I worked for other ranchers starting my sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
Then by that time, my 2 younger brothers were old enough that they were helping with the farm work. And so my dad didn't need me as much at that point in time.
Okay.
And so he encouraged me to go ahead and get a job working for one of the neighbors and save up some money for college.
Yeah.
So I took my summer wages and saved them up for college.
Okay. And where did you go to college?
I went to college at the University of Kansas, put myself through school.
Okay. Jayhawks?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Nice. This may be the wrong time to bring this up, but I'm a BYU fan. And we just played Kansas last week in basketball.
and beat us bad. I know.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool. And what did you study while you were there?
I studied, what is referred to as industrial psychology, but it basically is the psychology of leadership and management.
Okay.
And my professor, who was the head of the psych department there, had a management consulting business on the side, and he was one of the pioneers who developed the Japanese management method that they thumped us with in the 70s.
Okay.
What
did that look like?
Well, it was his management idea, basic concept was that he said, okay, he asked us, he said, all right, have any of you ever gone to a new job and got a job and say, boy, I'd really like to mess this up? I said, hold up your hand. Nobody held up their hand. He said, have any of you ever been working at a job for quite a while and said to yourself, boy, I'd really like to just make a bunch of mistakes today, And everybody was like, well, no, and he said, neither has anybody else. And so he said, so when you, as a manager, when things are going bad, rather than blaming the person, he said, as the manager, you have to think about to yourself, okay, most of the time people make mistakes because they don't have the information that they need to make good decisions, or they don't have the resources that they need to get the job done. So he said, as a manager, when you see that someone's not functioning well, he said, what you need to do is go and find out from them what it is that they need to be successful. And he said, occasionally there are people who want to mess up.
Sure.
That's a fact, right? But he said the thing about this type of a method is it turns out it works out that that's the best way to handle them too, is to just try to be helpful and say, well, what can I get you to do the job well? Well, he said most of the time, if they're the type of a person that wants to mess it up, they'll just leave on their own accord because that's not what they're looking for, So and that's an extremely, extremely condensed version of what he had to say. But basically, right at the heart of the matter, that's kind of the essence of it.
Yeah. There's a Navy SEAL named Jocko Willink. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so he's written a couple of books. One's called Extreme Ownership, and maybe it's a different view, but kind of that same idea. If you're a leader over somebody and they're screwing up, chances are it's actually your fault, right? As their leader, as
absolutely,
their manager.
Absolutely.
And even if it's not, if you ask yourself that question, what could I have done differently to have helped this person to succeed? You can usually find some pretty good solutions to that.
Very much so.
And own it instead of just always trying to pass the buck to somebody else.
Yes, that was his idea. Take complete responsibility for it, and then it works out the best no matter what the rest of the situation is. He had a doctor in psychology before World War II and got drafted. He and three of his friends got drafted into World War II.
Okay.
And they had their doctor's degrees. And when they got done with the war, they met after the war and said, well, okay, what should we do, for a project, something that we could write a book on, do a thesis, whatever, right? And they decided that they'd seen just about every kind of a management style known to man in the 4 years of their military.
For sure.
And so they decided to do it on leadership and management. And put this big program together, did a lot of studies, got all ready, presented it to the captains of industry of the United States, and the captains of industry basically said, well, we just won the war. We don't need to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just crushed, you
Yeah.
know. They'd
Mm-hmm.
been all this work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they went home and they were about ready to leave and just go their separate ways when a Japanese businessman contacted them and said, hey, we heard you developed a new management theory, and do you think that it would work in Japan? And they said, well, we'd have to come over and study your culture for a while, but we'll give it a try. And the guy
Right.
said, yeah. He said, we just lost the war. We need to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically the management concept
Okay.
that the Japanese used in the 70s.
Interesting. Well, that's awesome. I can see how that would be, very helpful to learn that. Now, at what point did you become interested in music?
Well, I liked playing. I started whistling when I was 5. My dad taught
Okay.
me to whistle when I was 5, and I always liked to whistle. You know, it's a kind of a cowboy art form, you know. And my dad was a cowboy whistler, and he liked to whistle Dixieland jazz, and he had a lady that played piano with him, and they would play for, you know, the county fair or any kind of special events going on, and, you know, kind of be entertainment. And he'd get up and do 1, 2, or 3 songs basically, and at some kind of an event, you know. So that kind of got me interested in it, you know, from that point. And then just as a matter of fact, I started singing in all the grade school and high school stuff, with just church choir and 4-H choir and, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, and didn't think much about it. Wasn't particularly interested in music. My folks made us take piano lessons, which I hated. But oh well, you know. But it was a good thing. But on retrospect, I'm glad they did, because it was it was an education in music, you know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I took them for a few years, and then I started playing football, and was thankful that I was so busy I couldn't do it, you know.
Yeah.
And but then in college I started hearing music and live music and good recorded music for the first time. I mean, the radios we had were, you know, Stone Age stuff, you know. I mean, the sound wasn't very good. And but
at the time, it must have been super exciting to have your own radio and listen to new music, even if it wasn't what we have today, right?
Well, it was, it was. It was a lot of fun. We'd stay up late at night listening to KOMA, which was a powerful radio station in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Playing this new kind of music called rock and roll.
Nice. You know? Remember your first rock band that you fell in love with?
Yeah, I do. It was Led Zeppelin. I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan.
So good.
Just played that tape until it just finally disintegrated.
What was the tape called?
I can't even remember.
Did it have Stairway to Heaven on it?
Yeah. It
Nice.
was it said Led. It was just Led Zeppelin. It was like one of their first albums that they came out with.
I can't imagine being there when they were new and taking over. That's fantastic.
It was exciting, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a rock and roll singer and guitar player. You know? Yeah, I was thinking Led Zeppelin, you know, Iron Butterfly. That, you know, the first album that I bought was Lightning Hopkins.
Okay.
We just went into this music store and just loved it. Blues, you know, he's a blues player.
Okay.
But the second album that I bought was Iron Butterfly, and I got a DeVita. You know, boy, that was. And then the third was the Led Zeppelin album. So yeah, I was really listening to those musicians at that point in time, and Cream, Eric Clapton, you know, the Yardbirds first, you know.
Do you
and
happen
Cream.
to remember how much an album cost when they came out?
I think they were $3.50.
And what was the medium? Was it a record?
Yeah, it was a 78 record. Most everything that you could get at that point was a a LP record, vinyl they call it now, you know, and so we got really exciting, you know, because Eric Clapton's playing with the Yardbirds, you know, kind of really early hard rock psychedelic stuff, you know, and then this friend comes down the hall at the University of Kansas, and his friend comes down the hall and says, "Boy, you got to hear this new record." And Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
boy,
really?
We've never heard anything like that, man. Let me tell you. Mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you're just starting to hear rock and roll, and then you hear Jimi Hendrix, it's mind boggling. But anyway, yeah. So I was thinking about that, but I had a bass voice, and all those rock and roll singers were high tenor guys, you know, like Robert Plant with Led Zeppelin, you know. Fuck, I was just like, I'm never going to be able to do this. And I couldn't even, and so anyway, but at that same point in time, along in there, then I started playing, I liked blues and folk music, and I learned how to play guitar while I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And so I started playing blues and folk music at the coffee houses. And I was hearing live blues and folk music in coffee houses. And, you know, in order to really understand how important and significant folk music was, you know, I recommend going to see this new movie that just came out about Bob Dylan.
Okay. I heard it was good.
Yes, because they do a very good job of showing how powerful a force it was. You know, folk music was the counterculture. It was the only thing that was speaking out against, you know, basically the deep state control of the government. I mean, you know, we're in college and Kent State's happening, right? I mean, kids are getting shot, you know. I mean, right toward the end of my college period.
Yeah.
And from protesting, and you know, and we're coming to the realization that the government's not responding to the will of the people. Wow, what the heck, right? I mean, what an eye opener, right? I mean, we grew up thinking in, you know, high school civics and, you know, and in college too, you know, you're thinking, okay, the government is elected by the people and should respond to the will of the people. I mean, the general people, we have a republic, you know, a democratic republic, and so that, you know, and then when it didn't happen, and it was almost like you couldn't force the government to do what the people wanted to do, you know, which was basically, by that time, people had become conscious that the war in Vietnam was about something, but you know, the idea of that was going to stop communism wasn't really flying by that point, you know, which is how they sold it, you know. So we're there just thinking, what is going on, you know, and so we got to see kind of the first things. You have this realization that that our government, who we had the concept that we hired them and they worked for us, weren't doing what we told them to do, and we couldn't make them do it.
And then you're listening to that through these rock legends that you liked, kind of supporting that same sentiment.
Exactly. And the musicians, and first of all, thanks for bringing me back to that point. The first musicians to do that were actually the beatniks, you know, in the 60s. Not very much as the beatniks are not widely known about or studied or thought of. You don't think of them much, you know.
What does that mean? That's not a group, right? That's a type of person?
Yes. That's a good point. Yeah, the beatniks was a counterculture movement that took place primarily in Greenwich Village in New York. And they were led up by poets like Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who we read his poetry, you know, in high school. And So these were some people who were, questioned the status quo, basically, and were like an alternative view of things, not just get in line and do the same thing everybody else is doing, and live your life, get a house, a car, a wife, a kid, and die, right? And that's it.
Right.
Good job. With nothing wrong with any of that, right?
They were challenging,
but they were saying, "Hey, think on a deeper level," and they would. So their poetry and so on was designed to cause you to think on a deeper level than just the mundane, right? And so they were called beatniks, and I'm not sure that I know the origin of the name, but they were the influencers of the folk music, and the folk music was the first. The folk music and musicians were the first group of people that openly confronted the group who was causing our government to not respond to us. And so they were pointing that out with their music.
Okay.
And so that was inspirational to us and to me.
Nice.
And made that's one of the things that I wanted to get into music, was to get people to think about things differently than what they had done previously, not just ordinary, right?
Yeah.
Be thought-provoking kind of ideas, right?
So you wanted to make change through your music, not just play music. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you had other ideas.
Yes, I was inspired by the music of Bob Dylan, and then later on Chris Christopherson.
Okay.
To provoke, to write and sing music that's thought-provoking, that makes you think about things differently than what you did before, or question things.
Okay.
Or
when did you move to Helena?
I moved here in 1976.
What is the name of your band
At that time?
right now?
Oh,
Yeah.
right now, Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust.
Okay. How many bands have you been in?
Oh, man, a lot.
Over 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yes, I have. I don't know.
That's okay.
8 or 10 probably,
Okay.
I'd say, yeah.
So Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust.
Yes.
And do you write your own music?
I do. I write
Fantastic.
if we, on a 4-hour show, we'll play about 50% original material.
Okay, nice.
So,
And what type of music are you covering for the other 50%?
the other 50% is Western swing music from the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Oh, okay.
And Western swing music I describe it as where cowboy music meets jazz.
Okay.
So it's swing jazz, and you can swing dance to it. You can swing dance to every song that we play, almost every song that we
Really?
play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
And
you know how to swing dance?
I'm not very good at it. I was
Okay.
kind of it's one of those strange quirks that I kind of missed that.
That's okay.
Knowing
Some
that
dance
or
and
learning
some
how to
provide the
do
music.
that.
Yeah.
That's another story.
So have all your bands been this genre, or have you been in different styles?
Well, they've been different style. But the first band, I had a friend of mine and my first band was in Florida, and it was the name of the band was Carolina, Kansas.
Okay.
My friend was from Carolina, and I was from Kansas.
Oh, okay.
And we formed this band, and he played bluegrass, and I played country.
Okay.
And so I played like Hank Williams and Ernest Tubb and that kind of stuff,
Okay.
So old country music, and then he played bluegrass, and we'd trade back and forth. And we had a lot of fun. Just had a blast. Played all over, up and down we played the biker bars in North Tampa and the fisherman dives up and down the Gulf Coast.
No kidding.
And
That's awesome.
It was a party, let me tell you.
I bet it was. And then when did your current band begin?
About 10 years ago,
Okay.
I formed this band. A friend of mine, two friends of mine, Tim Poole and Chuck Port, and Chuck is a bass player, and he was saying to me, well, he said, Tim and I don't have hardly anything booked this winter. And I said, would you guys play for me if I could get some bookings. And he said, "Oh, I can't answer for Tim, but yeah, I would." And so I talked to Tim, and Tim kind of grinned, and he said, "It looks like you're fixing to take a run for it." And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "We'll help you."
What does Tim do?
He's a drummer.
Drummer, and then Chuck
was the bass player.
And then you play.
I play guitar and sing and whistle and yodel occasionally.
Okay, nice. And now, are they still with you in the band?
No, they played with me up until about 5 years ago, when Chuck and his wife moved to Missoula.
Oh, okay.
And then Tim played with me another year or two, but then he kind of retired out of music for some health reasons at that point, and fortunately he's better, and he's doing really good and skiing like a wild man, and
fantastic.
Back to his crazy self, which but in the meantime I had gotten other people in the band. So
oh, great.
And then my second, and shortly after we started, like maybe 5 months or 6 months after that band started, Wally Benjamin, who's a harmonica player, I talked him into joining the band. And
fantastic.
so that was the initial Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust. First, just the three of us, me and Tim and Chuck, but then it was a 4-piece with Wally.
Okay. So I'm comfortable asking you this because I prepped you for that, but would you mind sharing a little music for us right now?
I'll sing a really short song.
Okay.
That is not one that I wrote, which you can come and listen to the show and hear some songs that I wrote.
Love
okay.
to, yeah.
But this is a trail song that the cowboys who drove the cattle up the trail from Texas to Montana sang. And so it's an authentic trail song. It's short. It's called the Night Herder song.
Okay, great.
Move slow, doggies, quit drifting around. You have wandered and rambled all over the ground. Move slow, little doggies, move slow. There's grass where you're standing, so feed kinda slow. And you don't always have to be on the go. Move slow, little doggies, move slow. Hi-oh, hi-oh, hi-oh.
Wow. That was fantastic. If I heard your voice online, I would think it was digitally altered to be lower. You have such a beautiful low voice.
Really?
I'm a baritone, and I used to sing in high school, and I could never hit those low notes. I couldn't hit the high notes either. I was always just kind of stuck in purgatory. But you grew up listening to people with high voices, and then to have that deep, low bass voice was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really looking forward to coming to one of your shows. For people listening, where can they find your music? And if they wanted to attend your next live show, can you tell them about that, where to find you?
Sure. There's three really easy places to find the music, and one of them is we have our own YouTube channel. So
Great.
Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust.
Okay.
On YouTube, just look it up and punch it in, and you'll go right to our channel. And we have quite a lot of video and audio. So, and the audio is CD quality audio on those videos. Okay, so
I'll link it into
What's that?
I'll link it with this episode so people can just click on it.
Okay, and then the other place that you can find a little music is, there's a few videos on our Facebook page, Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust, and Facebook wouldn't let me make separate words out of it for some reason. The algorithms, the computer wouldn't let me put it in there like that. So they run Cowboy Bob and Gypsy Dust together, like
Cowboy
two words. Yeah, you'll see it when you look it up, and you're on the right place when you see that.
I'll see if I can link that too.
And then the other place that we have where you can definitely find information about us and upcoming shows and everything is our website, which is cowboybobandgypsydust.com.
Okay.
So
no hyphens or dashes.
No,
or anything.
Okay. And you can do it, and it's not case sensitive either, I don't think.
I'll link it.
But it should just take you right to our website.
Okay.
And there's more music and more links and videos and stuff there.
Awesome. And what about a live show?
Our next live show is going to be Monday, the 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day. We're going to be at the Silver Star Steakhouse in Helena.
Oh, it's a Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there room for just the general public to come in, or is it just for those that are dining there that evening?
There's room for the general public to come in. Yeah. It's a bar, and so the music is on the bar half of it, not the restaurant half of the business there. And so, yeah, there's place to sit and just come in and have a beer and watch the show.
Sounds like a great chance for me and my wife to have a little date and come hear you guys sing.
It is, and let me tell you, if you like to eat while you're out for the evening, I highly recommend Silver Star Steakhouse. There, if I was going to send somebody to what I thought was the best steakhouse in Helena, that's where I'd send them.
Oh, good.
So really good food, not just steaks. They got all kinds of food. They got vegetable, vegetarian, all kind of stuff there. So and it's all just really, really top-notch food. So
awesome.
Good place to go and party.
Great. Well, Bob, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Did you have any last shout-outs that you wanted to make? And just
go on our Facebook page and like the band.
Okay.
And then you'll start to get the band feed, and you'll see, and we will put on their events, and you'll be able to see where we're going to be playing next.
Oh, perfect.
So that'll tell you what our upcoming schedule is. We're going to be performing in April at Mount Ascension. For those of you who like to travel out of town to great locations, we're going to be playing in April at the Pony Bar down in Pony, Montana. Down near north of Ennis. Okay. And it's a little bar way up in the mountains.
Cool.
It's a cool place to come, and people come from all over Montana because it's a cool destination.
That sounds awesome.
And so we're going to be playing there, and we've got a bunch of other shows lined up for the summer. So go on Facebook and like us, and you'll see where we're going to be playing next.
Great. Well, thanks again, Bob. We could have talked for 4 hours, and I already know I got to get you back here so we can have another conversation. So thanks so much.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'll be glad to come back anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for joining us. And we'll catch you in the next episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast.